Welcome to Director Nathan, Dart and Media Manager Nicholas. How are you both today? You must be pumped as the documentary gets ever closer.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait for people to see it. It's been a lot of work going to it.
Now, I just want to quickly kick off with a quick question, Nathan. Where are we at with the doco at the moment? We obviously have just seen there was a panel recently, but how's it all coming along? And are you starting to be a little bit happy with it, or are you still putting a lot of touches on it?
No, we're exceptionally happy with it. It's very close to being finished, and we're looking to release that very early next year. So it's just around the corner. Obviously, there's work in terms of our distributor having to get that out there and see where we get it released to, but it's all but finished at the moment. And so it's a really exciting product, and some small audiences that have actually seen it just to test audiences have found it really engaging and exciting to watch.
I guess when it gets to a position like this where you're all but ready to release, what are the emotions that you feel personally as a director and someone obviously so attached to men's netball? We're seeing it grow now around the world. We've obviously had news from England netball where we're seeing more and more in the media. So you must be pretty excited, and almost it's not opportunistic, but it kind of feels that way as it sort of will come out right on the cusp of the Commonwealth Games as well.
Yeah, I think what people may not realise is that the concept is 2 years old for me. The actual journey from the development of the idea and approaching AMNA to get permission to film with the players and everything around Australia, and all the way till now to almost the final product is 19 months. So it's been a long journey, and the process keeps going. Like, a lot of people ask me, when's it going to be out? Because there's been heaps of social media this year about it, heaps of news, and I want people to know that it is actually coming. But it's a huge journey, and the feeling for me as a director is that it was a huge challenge during COVID. We've had lots of changes to make. Nationals was cancelled for the second year in a row, and part of our storylines and part of what we wanted to film with the documentary had to change, and how we tell the story has changed over time. But in the end, a documentary documents what happens, and our primary focus anyway was the player stories, and that's really what comes through most strongly, which is what I'm most happy about.
Can you give us a little indication on just some of those players, some of the bigger names? Maybe you can give away some secrets.
We have some amazing men's netballers. We have an amazing New South Wales men's netball player, Taylor Glassy, who I think is one of the fittest athletes that I know in the netball space, and probably the fittest. And he was on our panel event last week. And we've also got a few really amazing people from Western Australia that have, and also Queensland, that have dedicated 10, 20, 25 years, even more, to the sport, who have shared their journeys, some very heartwarming, some incredibly emotional, some challenging in terms of challenging people's concepts and thoughts about gender in sport. So it's really big. And then we've got some really, I would say, in the netball space, big names. Sue Gordian, the voice of netball in Australia, I would say. Some would say. I would say that. She's played a key part, and she's supported us all the way with this project. So I'm really grateful for her support. Dan Ryan, who's just returned from England, he's got a few words to say in the documentary, and then also two bigger names. I would say Lisa Alexander, who's shared her thoughts on where men's netball particularly fits on an international level with her experience. And then we really wanted to approach Netball Australia to get a really balanced view of where they see the future is as well. And so we have the CEO, Kelly Ryan, speaking on camera to us as well. Obviously, I don't want to give away what they say, but Yeah. One thing that we were really particular about was making sure that we, and we also had Nat Medhurst as well, who had some, I think, some really important and crucial things to say through her experience during her career and also her view post-career. But really what we wanted was a balanced view and not just have men saying, oh, what about us? It's around having a look at that holistic picture.
Well, I mean, in terms of holistic picture, you probably couldn't have done better, I guess. So obviously, Lisa's now in the UK as well, and we'll be working with the Knights, and they're developing network of men's teams who obviously they're with the London Pulse, they're with the Surrey Storm. Like everyone's starting to really adapt to those training partners, and obviously back home, as you say, the voice of netball, Sue's been everywhere and is probably no better champion. So that's super exciting to hear. That particularly grabbing the CEO of Netball Australia. I think, Nathan, one of my questions for you was, what was that like getting a voice like Kelly Ryan, given, the dialogue that's been happening around men's, mixed, women's, and the Olympics on the horizon. Brisbane 2032 is not really that far away in terms of getting the sport included. So for yourself on the cusp of this netball journey, in terms of releasing your documentary, what was it like for you to actually secure those interviews, particularly around the person that maybe we need to talk to?
Well, yeah, I keep pinching myself. I keep pinching myself, to be honest. I think who am I really? That's what I think sometimes. And my endeavor with this was to share the men's netball story to the world. And along the path, obviously we've picked up people to be part of that story and to share that. And to get Kelly Ryan to share her thoughts on that. In many ways, it's early days for Netball Australia. In many ways, it's not early days for men's netball. There's a good product that has come and gone in waves throughout the last 35, 40 years. And there's been efforts to push it. So when I hear someone like Kelly Ryan talk about the future and the potential and the possibilities, and I hear other people talk about it, I still, in the back of my mind, understand that there is work to be done and that people's words, albeit maybe positive, strong from whatever angle, need to also then be backed by action. And I think that's the intention. So it's very encouraging, but it's also, it makes you think about, okay, well, now if we're putting this documentary out there, what kind of impact will it have to create like a social action and change around the issue?
The feeling I got during that interview, Nathan, was first of all, you and I had a bit of a laugh prior because I used some stronger language than you did. But yes, we both had this feeling of like, who are we to be interviewing Kelly Ryan? But she was completely transparent. She was upfront. And admitting that there's work to be done with men's netball, and it's on her agenda. How that transpires and folds out and in what time frame, we're not sure, but she didn't shy away from her views, and she's acutely aware of certain things that have happened in certain states recently, and pretty much everything that men's netball entails. Without saying too much, I think she's got a really good vision, but that then needs to lead to action. And I think that's what we need to see in the future.
For sure. And I think a question for both of you is the one, I think, debate that I think netball has a lot is how will men's netball elevate the sport? And where do you both see men's netball fitting into the landscape? We've obviously got in Australia a fully fledged professional women's competition really underway, and it's growing and growing. And obviously last week's news that even sides like the Gold Coast Titans are looking for expansion and they're coming into the Sapphire Series. So there is action in terms of traditional men's clubs now coming on board. So how does men's netball now fit into that elevation of the game as it continues to just grow year after year, and hopefully that continues?
Yeah, of course, the documentary is focusing on the Australian story at the moment, but there's so much happening globally and in bits and pieces within Australia as well. So it's an interesting time to be approaching this topic. I think when you look at what's happening globally with the men's teams playing their respective female international teams, and the associations around the world being absorbed by their national netball bodies, and World Netball making some statements, and the State of the Game review recently identifying men's netball as an opportunity for growth. There is only, I think, one direction here, and one of the themes we really wanted to drive home within the documentary was looking at not just the elite level, but the pathways. So how do you actually create the sustainability? And, one thing I said before was that you've had waves of effort throughout the last 35, 40 years, but, when you look at the sustainability of those efforts, not sort of to diminish those efforts for the people involved, but when you don't have funds, when you don't have the backing of the national body, how do you create that sustainability to then have that continue to extend, so you develop your elite product after that as well? So there's as much as there is a product now, and I could see it very quickly being absorbed and being promoted and funded, and there being a product on a national visible scale, then you have to look for the future as well.
Agreed. Josh, I think it's fair to say that we've seen a lot of the same faces when it comes to nationals or international play. Obviously not in the last few years due to COVID, but I think we really need to work on that new blood and develop our juniors. For me, there's two areas, and one of them being, what do we do with boys who reach 12 years of age or reach 13 and can no longer play? How do we keep them in the sport? How do we create a pathway from 12 to 17? The second part is that I think that all the netball bodies around Australia need to grind the axe a little more. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. So I think we need to keep, look, women will always be the champion gender of the sport. They've paved the way. They've gone from sometimes being in deficit by the end of the season to now being paid as elite athletes. But that's taken a very long time. So I don't think we can expect to just jump on board and get endorsements and, get, reimbursement or remuneration. Having said that, these guys who work their guts out, who play for their respective states in Australia, are still a pay-to-play system. They have trials, they have training commitments, they have team meetings, they have their own personal fitness goals that they've got to achieve. And they've got to pay for their own uniforms and accommodation if they want to go to nationals. How do we at least get them to not be out of pocket? Because these guys give a lot to the sport, and it's actually a really great product too. And I don't see why right now we couldn't have a curtain raiser prior to an SSN game. Not necessarily every week, but I think it's those two aspects. And if you put on top of that, the public don't know what they don't know. Unless you're in netball circles, there are a lot of people that don't know the extent to which men take the netball, how elite it is and how serious they take it. They also don't know how passionate and dedicated they are and how much they love the sport. So I think exposure is also a large part of it. Sorry, Nathan, the first two more so, but I think it's a little bit of a case of excuse me, if you're not in the netball circles, you're probably not aware of it through no fault of your own.
And I suppose the purpose of producing a documentary is also to reach the sporting industry, the non-netball circles, to really highlight what gender inclusion is. But from a reverse perspective, which I think has a slightly more interesting and powerful message, because really what we don't want is to be just saying, oh, boys, 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 what we don't have. It's around just saying, hey, netball actually has the best opportunity of any sport, having come from a female empowerment perspective, has the best opportunity to show of any sport in the world what real equality in sport and gender equality looks like. And we take that step, I can really see a future where men and women are paid the same. They have the same opportunities. There's the same promotion. Yeah, and I think netball has a really good opportunity to showcase what that looks like.
Can I just add to that, Josh?
Yep.
We have had feedback, and we believe there's a general perception out there that men may take over the spectacle that is netball. And within the netball community, and those of us who are very much intrinsically part of it know that that isn't the case. But Sue said during the panel, you fear what you don't know. We all are fully aware of who's come before us, and that's been women when it comes to the spotlight for netball. So we don't want anything more. We don't want to hijack the sport. We don't want to detract from them in any way. It's a case of, I hope we all make it.
For sure. And I'm one of those people that likes to spruik 3 different sports. We've got women's netball, we've got men's netball, we've got mixed. And I think mixed is the most fun to play, just personally. I love playing with really technical, trained women, and then getting that learning as well as the fun playing. But that's just my opinion. As you guys say, who am I to talk about that? But in terms of
your netball caliber is a secret, and it's something to be. I've seen you play, mate. I've played against you. It was hideously hard.
Moving on, we're going to talk about the panel now. So you touched on it then, Nicholas, but you know, it seems to me there was a really massive positive reaction. You obviously had Sue Gordian, who's been a massive champion, and Kira Austin and Taylor, as you mentioned before. So, you know, that must have been nice to all come together and, you know, put this out there and sort of build towards the big premiere.
Nicholas, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I had heaps of fun. I was very nervous to start with, but you know, Taylor and Kira know each other personally, and they had a really great synergy and chemistry. And Sue is very funny. She's very candid. So we had a lot of fun. We spoke a lot of things serious. We had a few laughs. And I think we got a really good cross-section of the netball community, and some really good questions were asked and some really good topics were covered. But it was also a lot of fun. And, you know, we spoke a lot about how Sue's been involved in men's netball for a long time, and that she, in fact, uses men as training partners for Fever, and that most SSN clubs do that. And Taylor spoke to his experience playing against the Giants and the Swifts and Fever himself. So it was a lot of fun, and it was really insightful. And Kira was great. She was so sweet. And she kind of gave us an insight as to what happens when you have a severe injury in netball. In the media, you know, you've gone from playing to having an injury and not being seen until you're playing again. So she gave some great insights into what goes on behind the scenes when you've had a shocking injury.
One Well, just one thing we didn't actually touch on with that injury aspect was then in an unpaid environment, in a pay-to-play environment, how that impacts men. They've got a system and a structure set up with physios and contracts that allow them to stay within that and recover. But I think it's, when you look at the risk that a lot of guys take on financially in playing at the elite level, that can sometimes rule them out in a sense of their career, not because they can't play again, because they just can't afford to pay the money to follow through that recovery. Sorry, Nicholas, continue.
Yeah. No, you're right, Nathan. And Sue and Sue was a sharpshooter.
Yeah.
She didn't hold back, and she was a lot of fun to listen to. Yeah, and even the Macaulay Culkin Home Alone, she has some haters about that comment, but she gave them a very strong indication as to how she felt about that, which included the raising of a particular finger on a hand. So it was really, really funny. There were parts where I was just trying to keep it together because I was laughing so hard. It was great fun, Josh.
We also aired the trailer for the people attending as well, which we will release soon to the public.
Oh, exciting. A little bit of a teaser there, Nathan. Yeah. That might lead us into the next question before the trailer, or even when the trailer's released. What's next for Rising to the Occasion? We've obviously coming close to 2022. So what's happening next? Have you had any updates of any accord lately?
We're working with a studio. It's to do all the music composition and sound and everything, and that's kind of coming to a close over the next 4 to 6 weeks. So there's still a bit of work to do, but it's really looking good, and it will be released next year at some point. And in terms of the trailer, everyone will see that pretty soon. I think next steps for us is really to, we need ongoing funds to be able to market, raise awareness. We really want to put a bit behind this to actually get the finished product out there and to a lot of people. So good news, we were accepted by Documentary Australia Foundation, which is a foundation for independent documentary producers to fundraise on their site. So they'll be advertising our documentary on the Documentary Australia Foundation website, and any donations are tax deductible. So once that is up and running, which should be in the next couple of days, I will be posting that on our social media channels. But any support would be really welcome. And, we still want to be able to communicate as widely as possible about this.
To add to that, Nathan, and this is your vision, not mine. Well, it is my vision as well, but this is your idea. I don't want to steal it. I don't want to hear from HR after this. Josh, we're aiming to really make an impact with this documentary. We're aiming for a cinematic release, and then we're currently in talks with opportunities in the UK and also in South Africa. We're then looking at a streaming service after that. So we're really hoping to get into the homes of people, not only those who play netball, but those who play sport and know those ups and downs, those themes that everyone has, and anyone else beyond that we pick up is just a blessing and a bonus.
Yeah.
Well, at KO and Fox Sports Australia, if you're looking for a great way to kick off coverage in 2022, you've got your own documentary, now a men's documentary. I think that would be amazing. Let's house them side by side. I think that'd be great.
I think my distributor may be hitting up Fox Sports at some point in the future. So yeah, if you're watching, keep an eye out for the call.
All right. Well, thank you both for taking the time to talk about everything men's netball rising to the occasion. I think there's a lot of people out there ready and waiting for this. And yeah, I wish you both the best of luck, and I'm sure we'll stay in touch as we get closer to the premiere.
Indeed.
Instagram is at rising to the occasion _doco.
Right, Mo, give some people.
And on Facebook, just look up Rising to the Occasion.
Yeah.